Welcome. It's 5:05. We're going to open the business meeting for April 2nd, 2025 at 5:05. Town of Diamond Valley acknowledges traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7, including the Blackfoot Confederacy members, Siksika, Kainai First Nations, the Dene of Tsuut'ina First Nations, Stoney and Nakota, Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley First Nations, and the Métis Region 3, and all those that make Treaty 7 land their homes. Can I get an adoption of our agenda? Is there anything on the consent agenda first, guys, that we want to remove and slide over to our main
For me,
meeting? Anything on disc golf, Jonathan? It's all good, right?
I'll give you the motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Together. If nothing else, then we will move into the regular agenda adoption.
I give you that.
Okay, Jonathan gives us that. All in favor? And can I get one for going into closed session, please? Under section 17(4)(27) and FOIP 25(1)(c). Cindy gives us that. Thank you. All in favor? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to reconvene our meeting at 6:10. 6:10. All right, we started today's meeting at 5:05. We had an in-camera session under FOIP section 17 and 24, I do believe. 17 and 25, sorry. And then we recessed or came out of camera exactly at 6, and then we recessed for 5, which stretched into 10. And here we are. So we adopted the consent agenda with no changes and the regular agenda with no changes. We have no motions arising from well, we kind of do. We have more of a presentation and anything 4.1 right here, right? Says there, motions arising from closed 4.1. Okay. Diamond Valley Fire Rescue Post Amalgamation Progress and Performance Report. Over to you, TJ.
Perfect. So we'll just briefly start on this, and then we'll finish that presentation back to the motion that you guys have to make. We just thought this would be a timely topic to bring up, and obviously we have with us our Deputy Fire Chief Trevor Dublé, who manages administration of fire prevention. I feel comfortable being able to say this. He is our data guru, data nerd, and we're very lucky to have him with those skills. But he does have a presentation that's going to briefly recap some of the progress and performance of us since post amalgamation. But really the topic's going to be diving into data and how we are using that for the fire department. One of the things that I'm really happy and proud that our department has accomplished in our about a year and a half of true amalgamation has been the transformation to being a data-driven, outcome-driven fire department. Data drives everything from how many members we should have. We've had questions of, why do you have 42 volunteers? Well, because data tells you that you can't rely on 80% of them most of the time. So that means you need to have enough to still respond. The data doesn't lie. We need those numbers to be able to show up. The data tells us what vehicles we need, what vehicles we need to go to certain fires, what type of apparatus you need to respond to those fires. Data speaks to our training requirements. We have a huge, massive matrix of all the topics that are required. And it also positions us for grants. We just received a $20,000 or a $19,000 grant for fire training from the government as a result of this work that both Deputy Chief Logan Sabourin and Deputy Chief Trevor Dublé put together back in September. Again, this is a data-driven grant that was put in that was received favorably from the province. And ultimately, it drives our budgets. Our budgets are driven by what we need to do. It's not want to do something and we want to have a flashy truck. The data drives that you need to have certain apparatus, certain amount of members, certain amount of equipment. And I think that what Deputy Chief Dublé is going to cover today will give council a bit of an understanding about why and how and where this data is driving our fire department right now. So I'll hand it over to him and let him talk about it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for your time. When we started this, both TJ and I recognize that this is an opportunity. Amalgamation presents an opportunity that not very many fire chiefs have. It's extremely rare, and with that, we wanted to build a fire department that has a purpose. We can go to the next slide there. So one of the first documents that we created was this strategic plan. And this strategic plan is what has been driving our fire department operations since about middle of 2023, 2024. This document is available online, but within this, I want to highlight a couple of the objectives that are very, very important, especially to where our operations are today. So objective 1.8 was to standardize the configuration of our apparatus, which includes the placement of our tools, our kits, our equipment, and make sure that those are within acceptable limits, given the current storage capacity and the capacity of our individual apparatuses. Objective 1.B is to standardize the operating policies, the procedures, the safe work practices, and the codes of practices that are utilized by all of our firefighters as they respond to calls and emergencies within the community and within our mutual aid areas. Objective 2.C is to make all of our operational data available to public through approved Diamond Valley communications policies and practices. And I think this is one that a lot of people have seen, and we've got very positive feedback on our Facebook page and our monthly stats, as well as we're reporting these in our annual reports, which again are available online. And then objective 2D is to align our operational reporting with our industry best practices and to utilize the practices like the Center for Fire Accreditation International, which gives you the industry best practice on how to report such things as your call responses and your response times. The last point I want to, or the last objective, is to work with our industry partners, with the government agencies, and with our public and private institutions to develop and refine our reporting principles and to ensure that they're within all regulatory frameworks that we operate under. So occupational health and safety, reporting to the fire commissioner's office are just a few of those examples. So this has been a big change in our day-to-day operations, and I think a lot of those have been noticed very publicly. I give Facebook as probably the primary example of that, to which I think has been positive, and the feedback has been good for us in the community. A lot of these objectives are either completed or they are very well underway. Next slide there, please. So going back to our data and our data reporting, these are our in-town call responses for 2023. And this has allowed us, if we go to the next slide, to compare year over year how we're doing. And what you will notice between the two slides is we've had a significant increase in our call volumes in town. Turner Valley Fire Station alone has been about 10% from 2023 to 2024. Black Diamond is shocking. It's been about a 38% increase. Referring back to that strategic plan, Black Diamond's call volume has increased to almost 38%, but we've actually decreased what we're responding to in town. So when we aligned our medical first response for both fire stations to ensure that they're the same on both sides, we cut a large portion of Black Diamond's medical first responses. We also don't respond to the hospital to land stars anymore. So even cutting those two responses or those two areas, we've still seen a 38% increase within the town. If we go to the next slide, we can see our 2023 county responses. So these are strictly Foothills County responses, both within our primary response area as well as into secondary response areas. So for example, Heritage Point, we backed up Heritage Point Fire Department for structure fires with vendor support, actually in both years. And the next slide will show 2024. And we see again that call volumes have increased for Turner Valley. Slight decrease on the Black Diamond side, but again, we are still increasing year over year call responses within the county. And that also comes with the decrease in our medical responses into the county.
Pretty interesting why you got that up. So Foothills County, Turner Valley, Foothills County, Black Diamond, Foothills County, Longview. So each one of those, so Turner Valleys would be here west.
Right, so.
And each one of those zones, the 8 represent the entirety of our fire service zone.
Correct. So the fire response map for Foothills County has response areas that are divided by fire station. So when we say a Longview fire response, for example, on their map, that is shared with dispatch. That is how they're reporting it, and that's how we're reporting it as well.
Excellent.
So we know our call volumes are going up. If we go to the next slide, this is kind of what is important is how fast are we getting to the calls? We've changed how we report this data. We now report it to our 90th percentile times. So if we look at the total response time on scene for the first truck within the town of Diamond Valley, it's 14 minutes. Even within the county, we're looking at 28 minutes. The last box there, the total response time ERF, that goes into an effective response force, which within the next slides, I'll explain to that, and I'll explain why this is important. We've adjusted our data reporting principles. So we actually look more at our calls, and we can see this in our end numbers. So in 2023, our effective response force, we only looked at 4 calls. But we've gone through exercises here, which will be presented in the next slides, that show we're actually looking closer to 100, upwards of 100 or 200 calls for our in-town responses to see how our performance is within our responses. Now, there are certain NFPA standards, National Fire Protection Association, that speak to what a volunteer fire department should respond to. You should have X number of firefighters on a scene of this event within this time period. Both Chief Moore and myself agree that, well, that's good. It's not the most beneficial way to do our operations. Those standards, while they're written, they don't look at the specific hazards of the community. They also don't look at the specific risks. So a NFPA standard will be good for rural Saskatchewan as it will be for Diamond Valley. 2 entirely different risk profiles, 2 entirely different ways of fighting fire. It also doesn't evaluate occupational or legislation, essentially. It doesn't look at particularly the occupational health and safety requirements that a province has in place for firefighting. So if we go to the next slide, this is where we really start to highlight why an effective response force is important. So over the last year, we have undertaken what's called critical tasking, and this is in line with the accreditation principles. We take all of the scenarios that we can subjectively or objectively see us responding to, and we go through a practice to determine how many what resources we need and how many personnel we need. And we ensure that these are both effective and efficient for managing that emergency. We've done this for 24 different scenarios. These 2 I have here as an example, a single family home for fire within the community. And then the bottom one there is hard to see, but it's for a motor vehicle collision. So we can see how many people we need, what resources we need, and we determine how we're going to get those out to sea. I've given a bigger example here on the next slide. So this is a wildfire. So we've taken a wildfire, and the HFI 1 through 3 is how we rank wildfires, but we call these medium risk wildfires for our department. An HFI 3 fire is a fire with approximately a 6-foot flame high. This is an idealized situation. It doesn't include things like a prolonged fire event. So once you start getting into, anything over 4 hours, you go look at how are your firefighters doing on scene. They're getting tired, they're getting dehydrated, they're getting hungry. They've also, volunteer fire service, they have other commitments. They may need to go to work. So how do we replace those firefighters? It also doesn't take into account things like if this fire is moving towards structures. If it's off Highway 7, how do we deal with traffic? Or what if there's other medical events? So this is just a bare minimum. Our critical tasking has determined that we need 19 people for a simple grass fire. As the command person gets on scene and evaluates the situation, they may find that they actually need more people. This is our starting point. And it's a pretty good example here. You need one person in charge of the entire event to oversee how fire attack's gonna go, but also overlook the safety of all the firefighters. You need those people for fire suppression. We need to continually move water to the city because we don't have that available. There's simply no hydrants in wildfires. And then you need people to drive the trucks.
I can just add something. So one of the reasons why I think anybody may ask, so why is this extra important? And I go back to some of those reasons I gave earlier. So this is a great example, and we've heard it in a meeting recently that we had for another committee where, you know, why do we send so many firefighter students? And I think you said too many firefighter students. That is actually the conversation that was heard. One of the things that we appreciate Trevor when he's dived into this data is that, again, the data doesn't lie, and you'll actually see how this data is actually come up with in the next slide. It's really it's above my head, that's for sure. I think you'll agree with me, but it's data driven so that people wonder why we need the amount of people, the amount of firefighters, the amount of apparatus to respond to these fires. The data suggests this is what you should have at a bare minimum, and that's not taking into a whole bunch of other factors. And one of the things that I would say most fire departments don't want to do is critical tasking, because it will show them how understaffed or under-equipped they are. So it is what I think a courageous feat that we are willing to, again, publicly say, this is what we should have. In the previous slide, we showed our response times. We showed the amount of times we meet that through our critical tasking. And it's not always good. Sometimes we take too long. Sometimes we don't have enough people to do that. But it's our effort with using data and with council support to meet those benchmarks and data. But if we didn't do that, of course we'd be happy sending 2 people to a fire, because why is that not a problem? Well, we can tell you for a fact the data says you should never have 2 people respond to a fire, like some fire departments in our area do. So that's why I think this is a really important piece. I just want to highlight that. That's why this is an important factor, that when we speak about transparency and we speak about why we are doing this data-driven, outcome-based firefighting operations, is because of that. To do it the right way and the safe way, we should have 19 people. And even we can struggle with that sometimes. So I think that's just a little more clarification on that. But the next slide, I think, goes into some of the crazy math and how that's figured out.
All right, so where do we go from here? Well, the next step was to actually go through and evaluate our risks. We went through the entire community and we've actually ranked our risks within the community. We've also looked back at how often events are happening within the areas that we respond to, as well as those mutual aid partners. And what risk ranking does here is it takes all of this stuff, runs it through the formula, but it takes the guesswork out of firefighting. It looks at a systematic approach to understand the potential hazards within our community and give us the ability to look at what do we need to continue to meet those risks. So it looks at the frequency of past events. It looks at the potential severity of the events or the consequences, as well as the vulnerable populations and the critical infrastructure vulnerabilities within the communities. And it looks at our available resources and how the house fire will impact the fire department. And again, it runs all that through that formula on the bottom, Heron's formula, to give us a risk ranking. And every event is then ranked and fit within our risk ranking analysis, which we will see on the next slide there. So we ultimately combine the two. We combine our critical tasking and we combine our risk ranking analysis. So we can look and we can go, for a structure fire, we know that the probability of occurrence is going to be this. It's going to impact our fire department this way. It's going to impact our community this way. Here's how many people we need to actually mitigate that emergency. What risk ranking ultimately does is it informs our resource allocations. It guides our pre-planning and our training, so we know how many structure fires, for example, occur. We can plan sort of how we're going to meet that. It enhances community safety, and I think that's the biggest thing that us as firefighters want to do. But it also ensures that we have firefighter safety as well as guides further strategic planning. So if we refer back to 1720, why don't we just go with an NFPA standard for our response times and how many people we get out onto scene? This is why. We know our risks in town, as well as our other response areas. We know what we need to get out to those resources efficiently and effectively to mitigate those emergencies. And that's why we've come up with the 90th percentile. And that's why, while we do refer to some of the response standards, we've created our own response standards, knowing what we need to get out to sea. And that's where that effective response force time is very important. Because while we have the first truck on scene in town in 14 minutes, we can have an effective response force on scene in 15 minutes because of the way we are set up as a department. So next slide will again go into that wildfire event and sort of give you a better idea of how the two are tied together with a little bit easier ability to see on this screen here. All right, so the last slide here, is why are we doing all this work? So outside of having a full understanding of what our fire department is doing and the risks in our community, those faced by our firefighters and the risks to the public, we are going to be going forth with accreditation, which is an internationally recognized achievement. So the accredited agencies are described as being community-oriented, data-driven, and outcome-focused. Accredited agencies are strategic-minded and well-organized, and they're properly equipped, staffed, and trained. And I think that's very well displayed there in those last few slides. It shows the community that, particularly this one, Diamond Valley Fire Department, or Fire Rescue, is transparent in our operations and we're accountable through the application of third-party verification and validation processes. In Alberta, there's actually only one accredited agency. That's the City of Calgary. There are a number of other agencies, other fire departments who have registered status. So that's Red Deer, Lethbridge, St. Albert, and Okotoks. And what registered status means is that they've started the same process that we have. So going back to my first day as deputy chief, this is what I wanted to build as a fire department. To have full support and encouragement from Chief Moore has been amazing. I want to continue building a department that utilizes our data to guide our decisions and to mitigate our risks within the community. And in the past 18 months, I think we've been very fortunate that we've built a very robust way of doing so. And that our way of managing our data and presenting our data has guided our decisions, our resource needs, our equipment purchases, our personnel deployment, and our training. We have a strong understanding of our response area, and we have a solid plan to continually improve the services that we offer to Diamond Valley, as well as our mutual aid department. With that,
So just
we'll open it up for questions.
as he goes to the next slide for questions, move that, just again, that reiterance of that, one of the reasons why I'm proud to support Trevor in his endeavor for the accreditation piece is for the small cost. It provides validity and accountability to us. As he said, we had a unique opportunity as a new department because we didn't have to create a whole bunch of new things to meet accreditation. We already had to start from scratch. We were basically starting a new fire department. So it was a unique opportunity that was recognized by Trevor and we've taken advantage of it. But what this truly does when we achieve the accreditation is this is not my spin on the data. This is not Trevor's spin on the data. This is not our interpretation of how good our fire department is doing. It'll be an internationally accredited, validated, and supported fire department that aligns with international standards and best practices that if anybody wants to say, I don't like the way you report your stats, you need to take that up with the international body that oversees the best practices and stuff like that. And I think that's why one of the things that we're really proud to be working towards is that we're already light years ahead of some of these other partners and stuff like that. And that's to the work of our firefighters and our fire admin team. But it really does go to validate the stuff we're doing is third-party assessed and validated. We know based on the feedback and the positive outcomes we've had so far in this process, that we are doing things in the right direction. And we're moving the department based on that data-driven, outcome-focused manner. And if we're going to continue to do that and achieve this accreditation, it will just go to showcase that we are doing things to international rights standards. So that's why it's important. If anybody has any questions, I know some of that math was mind-boggling. Like I said, it's not something I can tackle. But
Councilor Gordon.
Yeah, I love data.
yes, I
So,
know.
well done, honestly. You know, supporting decisions that we make with data is a no-brainer.
Mhm.
You know, when we were negotiating for amalgamation, I was on the fire and the emergency services committee, the subcommittee there. And there was some things batted back and forth. And we knew this was coming ahead. We knew setting up the new department. We knew what that would look like. So well done in what you've done, how you've really brought our fire and rescue team to a really expert level. I really appreciate that work. Question I do have is, where are we at in this stage of the accreditation?
So part of this whole accreditation process is not a lot of departments have done it. So the first step is obviously getting people in place who've had the required training.
Okay.
As of 2 days ago, we now have a person in place to do that. So we can pay a registration fee and become one of those registered departments tomorrow morning.
Nice.
Once that starts, you have 3 years to move your application into candidate status. We have almost half of the actual required documents and paperwork in place. So we're sort of starting ahead because the length of training that is required, I was able to build some of those reporting principles as well as documents beforehand, knowing that they're required at this stage. So yeah, we can start the official process tomorrow.
Awesome. This is a quick follow-up, you know. It always comes back to my mind, what is the role of council in this? And seriously, our role is well defined in the Municipal Government Act. We are to consider the welfare of the municipality.
Mhm.
And I'm very pleased with the work our fire team is doing, and I look forward to this process being finalized. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think just to that point, Councilor Gordon, I think that's our duty to you as council. So our duty as administration is to provide you with the data and the information to be able to make your decisions. And this is the right way to do it, is to provide you that data that is based on fact, based on industry best practices. That, again, none of this is personal bias on any of us. We are giving you all the tools and the information to make those informed decisions. And I think that we've developed that relationship where I think you guys have what you need to do to make your decisions, and we know where you guys stand in order to conduct ourselves as operations.
Thank you.
Yeah, kudos. I think this is absolutely marvelous, and kudos for the new fire department. We've had some pretty good fires happen, and one of them was right next door to my house. And you know, the efficiency of getting that fire out and doing what was required. And just recently, the Dunham Road fire. It's just absolutely great what you do for our community. Thank you so much. And Trevor, great report, even though I couldn't believe it.
I was gonna ask, who's the actuary?
Never been a math person.
All right, well, thank you, Heather, for wrapping that up, because I think that's just right. Any further questions? No, it's fantastic. Excellent job, guys.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
We do need a motion coming out.
Please do.
You want to get that one?
We're ready now.
Yeah. So with all that being said and the tremendous service that you provide, exceptional, we do know that there are some changes and negotiations and things. There have been some politics that have gotten into the fire service that unfortunately we do have to deal with. But I don't want to steal your thunder, because that was a great presentation. So recently I was at on our intermunicipal collaboration committee meeting And we have been negotiating a fire service contract, with renegotiating with Foothills County. And unfortunately, that hasn't gone the way that we expected or wanted. So I am recommending to council that we do give a 12-month termination notice to the county. And then just bring operations back to serving Diamond Valley residents, as we know you will excellently do. So my motion. Verna, do you have one already? Do you have it, what I just said, wordsmith, or do you want me to say something again?
Are we directing administration to provide the notice? Is that where you want to go?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So the council direct administration to provide Foothills County with 12 months notice to
to
terminate.
exit our current contract. The meeting, if anyone wants to view, in which I put forth this idea, is publicly online with Foothills County. Anyone can watch that. So it's just negotiations we've spent for months and months and have gotten nowhere on them. You do an awful lot of calls in the county and we need to be properly compensated for it, so we're not subsidizing it as Turner Valley, like Diamond Valley residents.
Yeah, it's under the Foothills website, IMC meetings,
Yeah.
for anyone who wants to see them. Also, great job. And I reiterate the same concerns as Councilor Holiday. We sit on IMC. It's become very personal versus factual. The agreement clearly states certain percentages. Those facts and those numbers aren't being upheld. There's been some conciliation, but nothing that's actually fair in terms of what we're actually looking at. And we've proven through numbers, which don't lie, and it's just being ignored for sake of politics. So we're gonna leave that as is. We're gonna vote on this motion shortly. And if it goes forward, we have 12 months for the Foothills County to re-engage us and hopefully come to good terms. And otherwise, we're gonna have a great service that you guys provide. People on the highways are gonna have great service you provide, and nothing will change. But after a year, if nothing has changed, then we will take care of our own. And it's a little protectionist, but it is what it is. Yep. Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, correction, it will only be Diamond Valley area that we
In
will serve
after
yeah.
12.
after 12 months, yeah.
Heather, go ahead.
It's definitely not something that we have a feel-good feeling about, but it shouldn't be on the Diamond Valley taxpayers to subsidize the county. I just want to say that publicly. It's not something that our fire department wants to have to do, nor does this council, but we need to be treated fairly. So thank you for working your way through this. Members of the IMC and unfortunate, but that's the way we have to go.
All right, with that being said, all in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Would you also like a motion to support your efforts going towards your CFIA, I believe it is, the acronym? Or are you already on par and you're moving in that direction?
In process, and
Okay.
the government, we're already halfway through the process before we even registered, so.
Well, sometimes, you know, you actually gotta be given the thumbs up.
Yeah.
You guys are good.
No,
all right.
we have reached this point.
Wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
All right, great then. Thank you. All right, moving on. Check mark. Affirmation of the deputy mayor, number 5, Councillor Thompson. It is now your turn to reign deputy mayor supreme. There you go. When you get back from Italy, that's right. Yeah, you gotta stand, you gotta do the whole.
Okay.
dance here, yeah. Hey, the king's up here.
See you guys.
Right?
Good night.
I, Heather Thompson, do solemnly affirm that I will diligently, faithfully, and to the best of my ability execute according to law the office of deputy mayor for the town of Diamond Valley.
Effective.
April 2nd, 2025.
Hey, Deputy Mayor.
Excellent. You're chairing every meeting from here to. All right. Thank you. All right, question period. Here we go. Question period is a 15-minute section of the council meeting that we hold for the public to ask questions of council or administration for points of clarity, general inquiry, or whatever your business is. So we like emails, phone calls, those little letters over there in the box can be filled out. As long as we can get them in early, then we can get some background information. So today we have 3 questions. 2 are towards the B situation in the responsible pet ownership bylaw. So just that's next on the agenda. So we won't answer the questions at question period, as we will be discussing that topic in the following agenda item. So I'll read them out. One's from Ben Campbell. Hi, I've heard that the town is considering banning beekeeping. Thank you. Our native bee pollinators are in trouble. Bees naturally from Alberta that have to compete with imported non-European bees. Banning beekeeping in town could help native bees. Thank you. And then we have one from Jerry Rook and Deanna Hintz. Deanna Hintz. Mayor Crane, council members, and CAO, as long-time resident and urban beekeeper, I am writing to you today to express concern about the proposed responsibility pet ownership bylaw and its prohibition on the keeping of bees. Bees are not pets, but rather a critical part of sustainable agriculture. They are essential to food security and healthy ecosystems. With pollinators populations in serious decline across North America, community-based beekeepers offer a practical hands-on solution to support diversity and local resiliency, biodiversity, Beekeeping in Alberta is already regulated under the Alberta Bee Act with mandatory registration, annual reporting, and oversight. There is no need for municipal restrictions. If the town feels some oversight is necessary, then a simple licensing system similar to that what is in place for backyard hens would be far more reasonable. Limit the number of hives is a possibility as well. Importantly, urban beekeeping is permitted and supported in cities across Alberta, including Calgary, where beekeepers can apply for a license under the responsibility pet ownership bylaw and must follow urban beekeeping guidelines. Airdrie, which launched a pilot project to welcome urban beekeeping with clear safety and training requirements, Chestermere and Edmonton, both of which have guidelines that encourage responsible beekeeping while promoting pollinator health. If larger cities can successfully manage urban beekeeping, surely Diamond Valley can too. Our communities have strong agricultural roots, and many of us choose to live here because of our rural charm and connection to the land. Supporting small-scale responsible beekeeping aligns perfectly with those values. Some people may raise concerns about competition with native pollinators, and those concerns are valid. However, some research has shown that the competition is dependent on how many factors, essentially the variety and the amount of plants available for forage. Many beekeepers, such as ourselves, are also advocates for native species, habitat protection, and pollinator education. Truly, there is more impact on native bees and pollinators from the current use of herbicides and pesticides than there is from small-scale responsible beekeeping. Please do not let this bylaw move forward in its current form. Let's take a collaborative, common sense approach that supports both pollinators and the people that care for them. In addition, the bylaw currently references the Diamond Valley Land Use Bylaw, which is not in existence. The Turner Valley Land Use Bylaw was the designation of urban reserve, which allows agricultural uses, including livestock. Sincerely, Deanna Hintz. All right, we will deal with those 2 questions in our debate in the following item. Third question is from Wayne Driscoll. And Wayne says, hello and thank you for your time. My wife, children, and I live at 207 Seclusion Valley Drive. I met with a town representative last October in our yard after we had informed the town that there is no right-of-way access across our property to the creek, and that we did not consent to access until we could come to an agreement. We originally met with this representative during the culvert repairs in 2024, when access was requested for that work. The town broke almost every promise made during that time. When we met this time, I was told directly and without any question that my concerns were, pardon my language. That is a direct quote. I reached out to the town that day and was sent to a planner for answers. That person was going on holidays and asked for a 1 month grace period. I agreed and then followed up every 3 weeks without answers, then was passed to another planner. I have posed the same question to them for 3 months. Please show how you can access our property without any agreement, and please provide the documents that prove it. I continue to get, we talked to our lawyers and that's what we believe. I asked for a meeting in person. They provided dates, times, they were available. I replied in agreement with the time they suggested, and they have not answered. That was on March 24th. My question is, who can I speak to resolve this by April 9th? Mr. Adam.
Yeah, thanks, your worship.
You.
Yeah, I hope we can resolve it right now then. So yeah, the town conducts semi-annual visual culvert inspections adjacent to the residence property to ensure there are no blockages. So we can now access the culvert via the new fire department drone. So staff no longer have to go on the residence property. If a physical inspection is required, we can access the culvert via the municipal reserve land up the creek bed, not on the private property. So earlier this year, staff informed the resident that we can conduct our inspections without trespass. We have additionally sought legal advice for all potential scenarios, and I do not have any concerns about our ability to ensure public safety with unfettered culvert access. And yeah, and I guess my apologies to the residents. Staff did not respond to them last week on time, so yeah, my apologies there. It's staff capacity issue. So I think just to clarify here for the resident, in normal circumstances, staff will not have to access the culvert via his property.
And just to be clear, that's Public Works do the visual inspections on the double culvert that we installed in 2020. I thought it was 2023, but
I believe so,
That's the
yeah,
one.
to make sure there's no blockages, so you know the road's safe.
okay. All right. Thank you. Can you put all that into an email and respond to said individual?
You betcha.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wayne Driscoll, for forming that question. All right. Moving on our agenda. We are at delegations, none. Bylaws and policies, 9.1. Pet responsibility ownership, 2025-106. All right. Matt, are you presenting anything on this? Sure. Right here. I think we only really have one thing to debate. Bees, baby bees. Two. Push up. Bird feeders. Bird feeders. Oh, yeah. It's cold's coming today, baby. Over to you.
Good evening, council. It's been a while. Great to see you all. August 2023, we passed our first Diamond Valley Responsible Pet Ownership bylaw. And since then, we've taken it to the test. We found some issues in it. Some of our officers received some advanced training. With that said, in front of you today is our latest version of the bylaw. My team took the initiative and built this bylaw. I've had a hands-off approach for the most part. They did a great job using their training. This is the first bylaw that we've actually used a subject matter expert. We've never used one of them before to make sure we were locked in. Animal cruelty, whether it be dog bites and that as well. So we wanted to make sure we were 100% protected. With that said, there are 3 areas of this bylaw that I'd like to discuss. I'm sure council has the same thoughts as well, that I'd like to make some changes. First one of them is section 3.2 sub B. With this draft of the bylaw in front of you, I would like to strike the section regarding bees at this time. Now, the reasoning we are doing that is we want to take some time to come back to council with either an amendment or a proposed bylaw, a separate bylaw at that point for urban beekeeping and licensing. So we have a bit more work to do. We want to nail it down. We were made aware the other day of at least one property in town, which is in an urban reserve, not in a high density residential area that does have bees. So that sort of relaxes the public safety risk with bees that some people may have. So we're looking to strike that from the bylaw as it stands. So that's 3.2 B.
Thank you.
The second section that just needs to be corrected.
we actually referred to the Diamond Valley Land Use Bylaw. We're all excited to see it happen someday, and we got ahead of ourselves, so I'd like to strike that. That's amending definition DD.
Yeah.
Means that the town of Diamond, the town of Black Diamond and the town of Turner Valley Land Use Bylaws, and any amendment thereof. So that would just be the correction there.
Could you make it even more simple, so it doesn't have to come back to us,
For sure.
by just saying the current land use bylaws of the town of Diamond Valley?
I'll look to Verna for that one.
I was actually okay with the definition because the order actually says that any bylaw that is in existence from the two former towns is the bylaw of the town of Diamond Valley. So I didn't have a problem with the definition as it was.
The only reason I suggest that change is because residents have reached out to me. Like, we don't have a town of Diamond Valley land use bylaw. So if we could just make that clarification, the current bylaw, the land use bylaws of the town of Diamond
We
Valley.
could say the land use bylaw apostrophe or bracketed S
Bracket S.
of the town of Diamond Valley. We could do that.
Yep.
That's easy.
Minister's letter clarifies.
It does.
It's just for residents' sake.
It
you know.
is more clear.
Not sure they're gonna read a 100-page property response.
Just want to screen, so if you don't actually put it again.
Yeah.
Section 3.3 sub C. Again, removing town of Diamond Valley, and it could just reference land use bylaw at that point of time.
Like you have later on in 16.2. Yeah, you do that in 5.16 and 16.2, you have it in a way that is much more in line with not specifying it, yeah, so.
And the other item that I wanted to discuss was bird feeders. So we have a concern in our municipality. It's known everywhere. We have deer, and what the deer bring into town, they bring in predators. So we have that concern there. So council's direction on how they would like to proceed with this. We've seen it utilized in other municipalities where they went ahead for wildlife management, prohibited bird feeders during the warmer months of the year, just to reduce human wildlife interactions. There is a risk associated with bears coming into the municipality and other predators, but to council's control, I'm fine with pulling that out of the bylaw as well. Council agrees, I can provide an update here now.
I don't have too much of a problem with it because it's May. I just wonder about why you can't do it between. Or you can't, the date, why have a date in there? You know, like, to me, it's like, it's not just bird feeders that are attracting the deer. There's people out there that are actually going into town, buying alfalfa pellets and throwing them out there. Not only that, but I plant flowers every year that attract the deer into my yard. I put fences around everything. So I don't know that bird feeders are the huger problem. And I think you should, if they're hung properly, that is stated in 16.4. I don't know why we have the between the dates of. Like, why?
It's, yeah,
Like if they're hung in a manner that the deer
so,
can't get them.
yeah, no, for sure. Your first part of your question, why the timing and stuff, so you're seeing bears coming out of hibernation, so that's your April to your June, and you have your summer months of July and August where they remain active, they may scavenge and enter into the municipality at that point, and then the fall, so they're pre-hibernation feeding frenzy. So
It's
they're
into
coming in.
apple trees, fruit. trees.
Apple trees, fruit trees. You look at Canmore and what they did to reduce the human wildlife conflicts they had, and it worked well. I'm pretty sure banned most of the fruit bearing trees. They have a fruit bearing program, and they banned bird feeders right out, if I remember correctly. So what I'm feeling from the council table is that you'd like to see that removed from the bylaw.
I just don't understand why you've got a date in there. If it's like, I don't mind if it's suspended on a cable or other device, and I don't mind that part of it. I just don't understand why we have a date, because,
Go down the table and then we'll come back,
yeah,
just so we can get some more percent.
sure.
Brendan.
Okay, so I'm just gonna come right out and say it's.
I think we're getting electrocuted here.
I'm shutting off.
Big button, baby, big.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks, buddy. New chair for me tonight. Okay, yeah, I'd like it straight. date aside, I don't want to get into the semantics of the whole thing. Like, I just like people to be able to feed birds whenever they want. To the cable, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You could put it 20 feet in the air. You could put it 2 feet from the ground. The birds are the ones that knock the feed out of the bird feeder onto the ground. That, like, if, of course, if you put it 5 feet up, the deer are going to be able to reach up, a cougar, a bear, whatever have you. A bear could climb a tree if you wanted to. Doesn't matter how high you hang it up. I'd like to see it removed. And just on this note, I don't want to burden our CPOs, yourself included, with going through people's backyards or knocking on people's doors when the real problem, as we know it, is people are feeding the deer.
Yep.
Okay, and it's not with bird feeders, it's with their compost and with other things. I would rather you guys be able to inform, talk to the residents about not feeding deers intentionally with alfalfa or with their compost. And I'd also rather you guys be watching speeders on the highway rather than going to someone to talk about a bird feeder in their backyard. I think that there's a practical way that we can use your time. I like the approach here. I like the direction that you guys are trying to take. But I also like that you've been open about, hey, this is probably not the best use of our time right here and right now. We've got a deer problem. If Craig was here, I'm sure he'd have another update for us because he's been all over for the past 12 months. But bird feeders are definitely not going to stop deer from coming in town. So I'd just like to see the whole thing taken off. Thank you again. Thanks.
Cindy Johnson.
And we moved into our last place and the last people fed the deer, or fed the birds with bird feeders, and then we didn't. I felt like a terrible person. I was starving these poor dependent creatures. So I think bird feeders are a stupid thing anyways, and in our public information, we should say, if you don't want as many deer, stop feeding them, and bird feeders might be a problem, but I don't think we need to regulate it with red tape that you guys have to then enforce, right? So I agree let's just educate people that bird feeders are unnecessary, and you create dependent birds that then if you move, they starve. So yeah, I would just take it out.
I'm with you on it,
So I have
but we have to strike 16.4 and 16.
so when council is ready, I can provide an amendment.
Okay.
Ready for it.
So striking section 16.3, 16.4, 16.5.
Oh, yeah.
Not 16.3, that one's fine.
So I have a amendment for that one though. So
Okay.
pulling out of our current legislation, so it's section 18.3 of our current bylaw. No person shall bait, feed, lure, or take any actions that may attract feral or wildlife, whether on private or public property, excluding the use of bird feeders, which is allowed on the condition that they are set out at a height that is only accessible to birds. So that's currently in our legislation, and that would be a full wraparound to, you can have bird feeders, put them at a height that the deer are not knocking the bird seed out, or
Minimize it.
minimizing the risk really at the end of the day.
I like it.
Totally fine with that.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
Looking to Verna here.
Go ahead, good.
Good.
Okay, with that said, we've covered bird feeders, we've covered bees, land use. I'm here for any questions council does have regarding this bylaw.
Do we have a fine for people directly feeding deer?
That would fall into the section that I just read out, feed.
16.3.
16.3.
Yeah,
I think it's.
the 16.3. So do we have a fine amount for that?
Yes, it would be fined in the bylaw.
I'm just going for the quick end.
It's down in there somewhere.
It's $500.
Yeah, it's in one of those.
All right. Now, I did mention yesterday, we have a solution for the deer, just saying. Pete Dunham's got it over there. You just,
I never found out how many calls we got in the town office.
I was gonna ask how many calls.
Yeah. I want to know.
Say something.
We got one?
We got one?
What did you say? I gotta ask.
I think there was 8 deer that the resident wanted collected.
It was so good.
That was perfect. You.
I think it was so perfect, there was a deer in a deer.
Yeah. no,
later in the afternoon too, when I drove by.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's good. Okay,
Can I find a bird? No, we can send one.
yeah, absolutely. I think we've got it all covered. One sec, I got Brendan first.
So,
Cindy's got a question, so I'll let her go.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank man.
Because we're on the topic of animals and maybe coming back with something on bees. There's this, we annually license dogs that people have to pay for, and then also chickens, and then I'm assuming bees. And to me, there's nothing more that like, I hate the process of having to spend my $25. It's like, everybody has a dog, just raise everyone's taxes and let's not do the extra accounting for administering that. I agree, like, when someone gets a dog, they should come and get a tag, so they always have a tag, but after that, what's the cost to the town? Like, I always like to see, you know, if we're charging something, there should be a direct billed cost to the municipality that cost is covering, right? But, and I guess if you have to go do inspections on bees and chickens, maybe that's it. So I don't know. Have we talked about that or thought about it?
We have not dived into that yet. Okotoks did make a change to their bylaw last year, removing dog licensing, to my understanding.
Yeah.
Our licensing fees are used for the management of our animal control, our pound. So we pay a contractor for the utilization for storing our animals. In the event we need to, an animal's abandoned, that's costing a lot of money to reown that animal. So it's cost recovery, really, what we're getting out of it. For that point, chickens, we conduct chicken inspections, your hen inspections, they get your permit to have it, and then we conduct an annual, generally a drive-by, just a compliance check on that. So that's where those fees are used for.
So it's somewhat in line with what we're collecting for each,
Yeah.
you would say, or you don't?
Chickens are very minimal, responsible pet ownership, fees are only going up for pound services and stuff like that, so at some point it will be just equaled out. Unless we continue to grow.
Or we start a dog sanctuary, which would be full in about
Moving up
2
to
weeks.
Pig's dogs.
That's next April 1st.
Yeah, no, I just, I just worried about the administrative time versus just everybody in town owns a dog, so just
It's on.
have a,
25 bucks a dog.
well, they have to match. that.
Lisa's a numbers guru. Watch this. Lisa, how much do we take in revenue for dogs, just dogs? 25 bucks a head. How many dogs? How much money? You do, this is where you BS me. You throw me a number, you go like $8,522. So there's only a half dog on one, he lost a leg. So, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I can pay $5,000 in taxes and not have to do a thing, it just automatically gets taken out of my bank account, but I have to go physically figure out get online and pay the $25, and it annoys me.
I just ignored until they threatened me.
Like,
Say you're the mayor, you can't not pay for your dog or you're losing your position. I'm like, oh, fine, here's your 25 bucks. If I'm not like, what's that, mayor? Black Labish? Yeah.
yeah.
Before I
That was bad. Yeah, I love my dog. Okay, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Heather, you wanted to clue us off with your last thought, but I can tell already, you've already forgotten.
No, it's just in the fines,
Yeah.
the miscellaneous. That'll have to be amended as well, because we've got Facebook either between April 1st and.
Oh, the dates, yeah.
So just touch the amendments as well.
We can, yeah, sure.
Excellent. You got a question?
We don't want the answer.
No, we.
Search the revenue and set aside of 19,000 in 2024. Add fines onto that and hen licensing, and it would add up to close to 20,000.
That's a lot.
So thank you residents for registering your dogs.
It's about a quarter, 1% of the tax.
Wow,
So let's leave it on fees.
yeah,
Carriers.
I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah, numbers.
Like,
Thumbs up, I'm good with that. See what I mean?
Good to see you, man.
You as well.
And then Nick is like,
Thanks, man.
all right.
Let this guy off the seat.
Yeah, I'm trying, but Heather's just talking and.
So are we making a motion?
We don't need a motion.
Okay,
No, he's got to bring back the amendments.
but we want to give it first and then we can say with amendments and then you can come back.
I'll
for
give you
second,
first.
third, right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay,
I'll give you first as amended.
is that good for,
You give it first
just for?
and then amend it,
And then we're
and then you
gonna.
give
You
it
bet I
second if
can.
you want.
That's what I thought.
I'll give you first.
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Now we can do second as amended, and then we can wait for a third. coming
So
back
should
with
we-
revisions.
Do you want me to clarify the amendments?
I've got them all, I think.
The striking of the bees, the
Yep.
bird feeders, and reference to the land use bylaw.
Yep, you bet.
And on the fee schedule.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
fines will follow through. Yeah.
And Matt,
I'll
Just read mine at
we got it all?
third.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so a motion by Counselor, as amended for a second. Carried, because we're voting. There you go. All in favor. Good. Carried. And now we'll wait for third when you come back with your finale.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
All good. Good.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councilor Rogan.
Okay, moving on. Borrowing bylaw 2025-113 to facilitate disestablishment of the West End Regional Sewage Services Commission.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Are you coming up?
Absolutely. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you. Take care. I got his name first time. I can't remember. It's all good. Lisa. I'm trying to find, go ahead. Pretty straightforward. We could, but she's gotta, tell us a little bit about it, because there's some interesting things.
Interesting thing.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let Verna start for the legislative.
That's
the
interesting things.
Establishment.
Isn't that a fun word?
It's crazy.
I can't spell.
We are just establishing you, like, it doesn't sound right. You gotta love how the English language just throws prefixes in there just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
The fingers don't type that word well.
No, it doesn't. The brain doesn't work on that. I've been spelling it. It's like,
Good scroll.
it does.
It does. So, the commission has been around for a really, really, really long time with 2 members. And now it only has 1, so it's time to disestablish it. We are still not quite complete the lagoon upgrading project, which does create a little bit of a, we'll call it a delay or a challenge, there's some time lapse that we have to trickle some things through rather than just disestablishing everything. So we'll work on providing that and so the board has already approved the plan. So now we need council to approve it because you're going to receive all of the goodies that the board wants to give up. So before you in the package is a plan. It's very draft. It's a little bit high level right now because most of the work is actually going to be done through external agencies. And so we're not 100% sure what the timelines are yet. As we start to figure that out, we'll update that plan for further reporting to both the board and council. We'll keep everybody informed of what's going on as it works its way through the system. So the board, the commission has to undertake disestablishment. It's required to be in their bylaw by the legislation, by the MGA. And it also requires the board provide a plan for ceasing services to the town. Because the town is actually the one conducting the services for the board through contract with the town. It's very convoluted. You won't see any changes in anything. It's just paper. So one of the first things that we have to do is to facilitate the transfer of the liabilities is the debenture. And the town is required to have a borrowing bylaw to be able to acquire the debentures of the commission. And then we can work on transferring the assets and everything. So if there are no questions about the legalities of that, I'll let Lisa deal with the numbers of the bylaw. Okay, so for the borrowing bylaw, I think one of the most important things to point out is the number for debentures is high in this bylaw. That is not what I am anticipating, but given that there's been some uncertainties or things could happen as we finalize this project, we decided to make the bylaw, much like the motion for the commission members that we passed, all encompassing. So if, so that we don't have to come back and do it again, because this bylaw needs to be advertised and it's petitionable. So we did raise that amount. So I just want to confirm with everyone that that is not what we are anticipating. That 5.4 million is not the anticipated borrowing.
Currently, the commission has a $4 million debenture. We also have a fairly generous surplus right now because this, operating the lagoon has been in the commission budget for the past 2 years because the lagoon was supposed to be operational 2 years ago. So there is a surplus. So I'm not anticipating that we will need to borrow the 5.4. Currently, our budget states just over a 5 million debenture, but obviously we will borrow as little as possible or not at all more if we don't need to. So I just want to make that clear to everyone.
That's good.
And it's also clear, just for those that may be listening, that is already budgeted on the town budget. It's not that we're assuming an extra amount, which needs to be clarified. So how much is that expected to be for 2025 in the dollar figure? For the debenture?
For the debenture?
Yeah, do we know that number? Because it's already part of our budget.
It is. So it's broken out into my West End budget, sorry, which is so tiny. that People just.
You want my,
Just like,
you want
oh
my
my
Bible too?
I'm sorry. So for 2025, I budgeted for the current debenture amount, the 4 million. Because even if we did need to borrow more, it would be later on.
Yeah.
So the payments would likely not hit us until later. So to keep the requisition low, the 4 million was budgeted. Prior to that, I budgeted the 5 million. So there's surplus that the commission agreed that we would move forward to cover it. So I can give you that number, but it's just gonna take me a second.
Fine.
Sorry. So the interest was 202,665. And I'm really killing it here with my vision. And that's 134,921, I know.
Pardon me?
134,921 would be the principal for 2025.
Okay,
Yeah.
so roughly 336, give or take. And that's already budgeted. And so for residents, notice, it's not an additional amount that will be assumed.
Yes, that is correct. So in the town's budget number 42 for sewer, there is a line in there that is transfer to agency to West End. That is the entire requisition amount. That amount includes the debenture payment. It includes the operational costs for 2025.
Thanks
So there will be no change to the tax dollars for 2025. And it has been in the budget for the past 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent clarification, because people have been asking, oh man, we're gonna be overburdened. It's already being paid.
Yes.
Perfect.
Motion now.
Okay, which motion do you want? I guess we have to do the first one, right? The establishment, so I'll just scroll back up there. You give me that one, right? Not the establishment, which you want to say. Okay, I'll do the disestablishment.
Have them all.
No, I'll just do the first one. The council agreed to support the West End Regional Services Sewage Services Commission's plan for disestablishment, including the transition of assets, liabilities, and wastewater treatment services to the town, and direct administration to work with the commission to meet the town's responsibilities in completing the transitions.
Excellent. Everybody got her?
Yeah.
All in favor? Go. Cindy, please.
I'm doing really good at getting myself out of meetings.
Right?
This is my second
We're
one.
just like,
My-
totally back in it
my
right now.
meeting's fun.
That's
Anyway,
I'm getting there, dude.
that council give first reading to bylaw 2025-113, borrowing bylaw for lagoon upgrade.
All in favor? Believe that is all you require. So we will still have meetings, so. For West.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're not disestablished yet, sorry.
Today.
All right, that was all good. I actually enjoy them. I
think you like the IMC.
Oh, yeah.
The cemetery board, it's much more exciting.
Definitely.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for.
Yeah, thanks for your work on that.
They're so quiet at the cemetery.
Oh my goodness.
I was gonna say, everybody's just laying there. Oh, sorry. I thought-
Dying to go to a cemetery.
Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah.
Leave it.
All right. Political
I got you.
participation in the Diamond Valley Parade and Festival.
I can do that.
You give me that, yeah.
Yeah, the council approved council policy 029, political participation in the Diamond Valley Festival as presented.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know that.
I'd say good job too, Heather.
Yeah, I think this provides real clarity.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your work on
Well done, Monique.
it. So,
And
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
one thing I do love in here as well is the restriction that you put on the advocacy groups. You know, I think that
Mhm.
protects council moving forward in years to come.
Yeah.
I've been following some different municipalities across Canada where they've kind of stepped into it because of the failure to have the advocacy groups there and mentioned, and they lawsuits and whatnot. It's not good. So
Yeah.
I love how you've written that. I think it's tight enough. I was gonna wonder if we should tighten it up, but
good.
if they're an advocacy group, you're not welcome.
Perfect. That being said, all in favor? Excellent, thank you. We have the Sheep River Regional Utility Corporation 2025 draft budget. I'm going to go over this and say, Councillor Holiday. I believe you made the whole nines on this one, right?
Yeah, everything's running smoothly. Stop
Anything-
order.
Nothing egregious,
Yeah,
we're still
it's just
working on the
wages.
water intake, everything else is
Surplus.
status quo. Got a brand new facility, we're all good,
We are.
so, all right. Hit it.
Does Cindy want to give that one?
She does.
I think, yeah.
The council approved the 2025 Shark operational and capital budget as presented.
Perfect,
Let's go.
thank you. All in favor?
Hey,
Numbers don't lie. This one, Nick, is there any changes? Just want to come up maybe for this one. The Dr. Land Memorial Pool Fee Assistance Program, or is this where we're just removing a few?
no,
I think it's just a report.
It's just a report,
yes.
Right.
yeah.
Right? Anything new in there?
No, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
It was just when we spoke last, I was just telling you that I would have a report to you,
That's great.
where we had decided what type of program we were going to be implementing
Mhm.
prior to March 31st, which we have. This will be open for intake April 15th. So I think it's fairly clear, and
April
we will
15th.
advertise this. April 15th is when residents can apply. There will also be, and it will be posted as of tomorrow, updates on the pool. We plan to open on June 6th, just prior to, Diamond Valley Parade and Festival. And then from there, it'll close the day after Labor Day.
Oh.
Yeah, so there'll be more information regarding registration. There will be preferred resident registration, the same as usual, 1 week prior to the open registration. And that's occurring on May 15th.
Awesome.
And that's gonna be for classes.
First 20 class.
Correct.
Okay, Brendan.
Love that it's gonna be open for the Diamond Valley Parade, just as, and you can call it point of order if you want.
Sure.
When we had the splash.
Point order. I just wanna say.
Open at the same time, because we asked about this last year, because it opened after. So are the pool and the splash pad both gonna be open? Or I'm looking at you, Adam.
Yeah, get back.
He's going.
Well, because I would like it to be open for that weekend. Last year we missed it, but I think
Yeah.
that was because of the upgrades.
That's
We were
what I was
dealing with a repair at the time.
That's
If we're
right.
ready to rock, I would really, really like it to be open.
Yeah.
Not only because I've rented a campsite / 7 of them. That's for me and all my friends. But it's great for the kids.
Yeah, no
Thank
worries,
you.
your worship. I'll send it out in an email and then we'll clarify it so it's public.
It can come back to the
Yeah.
next meeting or whatever. I just thought I'd ask what was on my mind, because I know that's a wicked opportunity for the kids to get in. So if the pool's
Yeah.
open and the splash pad are open, that's awesome for Diamond Valley Days.
Guys of 16, 17 next week.
Yeah, there you go. One of the things about splash pads, right, like they can operate outside of a pool. The thing is, we have the lifeguards are doing the water quality testing. So if we were wanting to see the pad remain longer, because usually September is beautiful. And people do complain that, oh my gosh, it'd be so nice if it was open. If we did have some testing capability from Public Works, that would be your only way. We would have to test the water. So that would be something that you guys would have to consider between now and then.
Yeah.
And then you could have the splash pad open on a timer, couple check-ins for testing, And that would be an extra cost, but it might be able to, lengthen it. The other thing, when they shut down, they like to winterize right there and begin that process. So then you'd winterize the pool and you'd have to come back to winterize the pad. Be it, it's not that hard. Open all the drains, drain it out, yada, yada. But anyway, a few operational things that would be a cash value. So if you are gonna do that little bit of work, bring the cash value back and then we can consider that.
Yeah. If
And-
the pool's open, I mean,
But if the pool's closed, then
when he said be open. For Diamond Valley days.
I'm talking, oh yeah, I'm
Oh,
talking all the way into September.
I see. I
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah.
My apologies. Okay.
All good.
Will be your worship.
Motion to accept his information or no?
Yes, please. Yeah.
I will give it to you because it's a great report.
Sure, all in favor?
Yeah.
Thanks, Monique.
No inquiries, no notice of motion, no more closed meeting.
Yes.
We're gonna have another little session. Section 25, I believe.
Yeah.
5 minute recess. We're coming back.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a 5-minute recess. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, we are reconvening after a 5-minute recess and we just have one item in closed. We do not anticipate a motion coming out of closed. So if anyone's online watching, forewarned, it won't be long and we won't have anything to motion. So, motion there,
Go to close.
section 25. Thank you.